So what have we got this year for my little section? To be quite honest, not very much at all. Yeah, we've got the usual suspects. Cigarettes, tobacco is going to be up by the rate of inflation, sticks about 20p on a packet of 20. Alcohol, about the same level again, it goes up by, which is about 10p on a bottle of wine, 50p on a bottle of spirits. But, brace yourselves, I know Doug trailed this, but the big news this year, penny off a pint of beer. Or as my boozer had on its door last night, buy 350, get one free. So, I know we're all going to be rushing down the pub to spend that money. Vehicles, yeah, the planned increase in the fuel duty has been scrapped. Great news, 3p that would have been going on in September. And actually, credit where credit's due on this. If the present government had actually gone ahead with all the planned increases, at the present time it would have meant a litre of fuel would have been 13p more expensive. So, you know, it's something that does sort of tend to sober you and perhaps drive you to buy that 350 pints of beer. Vehicle excise duty, car tax to you and me, going up by the rate of inflation this year, but not for trucks, heavy goods vehicles, buses, coaches. That's actually going to be frozen, which means all of the truckers out there, you can still afford to buy your Yorkies. That's all good news. Classic cars, exemption is actually going to be, the scope of exemption is now going to be increased to allow vehicles that were constructed up to the 1st of January 1974, so that's quite good. Nice, fluffy, eco-green stuff. Landfill tax standard rate is up by £8 to £80 a tonne. Reduced rate is going to stay where it is. And climate change levy up by the rate of inflation. You're getting the picture here, you know. It's just all about the rate of inflation on most of these. VAT. Last year we had all the excitement about granny, pasty and caravan tax. None of that this year, I'm afraid. Thanks, John, by the way, for modelling for the picture on the left. Very good of you. So what have we got? Steady yourself, because this is going to be a real roller coaster of excitement. VAT registration threshold is up by 2,000 to 79. Deregistration is up by 2,000 to 77. And fuel scale charges are up by the rate of inflation. You can see that I got really excited on Wednesday by this stuff. One little thing that did just creep in, research. Research services undertaken between eligible bodies. That's not-for-profit organisations, typically educational establishments, charitable organisations. This was a slight anomaly. That's now gone. I'm not too sure how many of you that will affect, but it's just something that will go in August this year. One area that was of interest, although it was announced as part of the budget, it's not really a budget item. It's part of the VAT package of changes that they kicked off back in 2010. And this affects the supplies of services in internet, broadcasting, telecommunication. It covers things like mobile phone charges, coverage and connectivity, internet hooking up and provision, and live TV broadcasts. It's that sort of activity. There's a planned change which is going to come in at the beginning of 2015, and it only affects business to end use, not business to business, but business to consumer activity within the EU. Up until now, or up until then, the position is that the place to supply these services is wherever the supplier belongs. So irrespective of where the customer is based, say if the supplier is based in the UK, they'll charge UK VAT irrespective. What will happen from the beginning of 2015 is that place of supply will shift to wherever the customer belongs. And what that means in the first instance is that all the people involved in this type of activity, in theory, will have to register in every single EU country where they're undertaking this activity. However, what is also being introduced is what they call a mini one-stop shop. It's an IT-based system that allows a single registration in any one of the EU countries. So, for example, in the UK, you can register in that country, file a single return, record all of your EU activity on that one return, and it means you're not going to have to register in all of these other EU countries. So anybody that's actually involved in that field or anything to do with that area, you really need to be starting to look at that now. As with other areas of tax, there are a number of consultations which have been announced. Some of these for VAT are actually quite useful. Retail exports, this deals with where you have overseas customers going into likes of Marks and Spencer's, Debenhams, High Street stores, Currys, whatever, picking up their purchases, taking it out of the EU, getting a form stamp, sending it back and getting their VAT back. Customs are looking at trying to simplify and make that process a lot easier, and inevitably it will go electronic. Exports. This has been a really big issue. Up until about a year or so ago, customs were fairly flexible about the procedures and the level of documentation you required to support zero rating of goods moving out of the UK. What we've seen over the last 6 months is a real tightening of procedures. They're starting to come down heavily on businesses that don't have all the I's dotted, all the T's crossed, all the documentation in place. But what they do recognise is a very difficult area. So they're engaging in a consultation to look at making it easier and simpler, making the procedures better to follow. In particular, in an area called indirect exports, this is where your customers actually arrange for the export of goods from the EU. And that actually is notoriously difficult to control and monitor and get documentation for. So actually I think this is quite a good one. Manufacturers, refunds, this deals with, say for example, you go to Currys and buy yourself a DVD player, you say it's £5 off if you send the token back to the manufacturer. Again, it's just looking at that whole procedure, the whole area of manufacturers, vouchers and refunds, making it easier and simpler to follow. And with education and health, it's looking at the scope of exemption across those two areas. Is it too narrow? Is it too wide? Could it be better policed and controlled? So again, these are actually quite decent consultations. Right, this is the last one. This is a biggie, and I hope you're all sitting down for this because and this is a shock to me as well. VAT is still 20%.